Tyler, along with Justin.
Hey everyone.
All right, we have a special interview with us today, and we will be doing it with two people that are involved with the Xenosaga Pied Piper Remake project. First up, we have CycloneFox, otherwise known as Fox.
Hello, everyone.
All right, and we also have Bob.
Hello.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you both for joining us today,
Mhm.
and we're very excited to talk about this project because it looks like you guys have put a lot of love into this, and I just definitely want to make certain that your efforts are shown to everybody and let everybody know about how much this project means to both us and all Xenosaga Xeno fans out there. So thank you very much.
And thank you. I'm really honored and I'm thankful to be here.
I'll echo that.
All right. So first of all, since we have this tradition. It's been a while since we've had like new guests to the podcast, but we've usually have this tradition where we ask our new guests how they got into the Xeno games. So how did you get into like I guess either Xenosaga or into the overall Xeno games? And you want to go first, Fox?
Yeah, sure, I can. But I guess my answer will probably be the longest. Sorry for that in advance. If I ramble, just slow me down. Just stop me.
Wouldn't be the first time someone's rambled.
No, yeah, not on this podcast. What?
Yeah.
As you know, I live in Europe, so I didn't have a lot of touching points with the Xeno series until very late into the series. We had Xenosaga Episode 2 eventually, Der Wille zur Macht. No, wait, It's Beyond Good and Evil, Jenseits von Gut und Böse.
Yeah.
Der Wille zur Macht, or The Will to Power is the first one, sorry. I already
fine.
start rambling. Anyway, but that wasn't my first look at the series. I never heard anything about Xenogears. That came much later after I already played Xenosaga. But I was always a big fan of JRPGs in general, but we didn't get a lot of them in Europe at that time. But I was a fan of the Gensou Suikoden series, and I loved Suikoden 2. And I loved it so much that I had to get a PS2 to play the third one. But the third one never got to Europe as well. So I took my pocket money, bought a PlayStation 2, and you have to imagine I didn't even have internet at home. I went into the library, go online and as a computer there, found this sketchy website of some company who would put a chip into your PS2 and had to put this. I don't think how I don't remember how expensive it was exactly. Maybe 200 euros or something, plus the chip itself, which was 100 euros. So it was a big investment for a student like me. I was somewhere in my mid-teens at that point. And so I sent the PS2 away, and it all went well, luckily, thankfully. And I eventually got my PS2, which could play games from anywhere in the world without region lock or anything. And that was my ticket into a whole new world, you could say. So, yeah, I eventually I played Suikoden 3 and was let down by it tremendously, sadly. I know there are big fans of Suikoden 3, but it just wasn't what I hoped it would be. I came to terms with that later, but that's another story, whatever. Anyway, someone in a German JRPG forum put up a trailer of Xenosaga Episode 2 when that came out in Japan. So it must be around 2003 to 2004, I think. And when I saw that, it was the greatest for me. It was so awesome. It was like nothing I've ever seen before. It was the long trailer, which is about 6 minutes long, I think, and it starts with the image theme of episode 2. I don't know if you know that trailer.
Oh yes.
And then
That was a good
it
trailer.
went to Fatal Fight, and then came Communication
Mhm.
Breakdown. I think Communication Breakdown is completely in that
Oh,
trailer
that's
from
my
start to
favorite
finish.
trailer. Oh yeah, that's a good
It's
trailer.
just the best. It's so great. Yeah, I love it. I love it. It showed so much. It showed calm scenes with two kids on a porch, sitting in a big field or something. It had samurais fighting against each other. It had mecha. It had action. It had exploding planets. Whatever. There was so much I couldn't grasp what that game was. But I loved the production value in it and the cinematography and all that, which is something I still love in JRPGs like that. And so I knew I had to get that, but it was
Mhm.
a couple months before the release in North America of Episode 2. So I firstly, and I never heard that Episode 2 would eventually also come to Europe. That would be about 1.5 years away from that point. So I imported Episode 1,
Hmm.
obviously, first. And when I played that, I just fell in love with it. And sorry for the much rambling, but I thought it must have
Oh.
been an interesting little story how a
No,
European would get into that series.
and this is actually why I love hearing Europeans talk about like Xenosaga, because people in the States, I don't think a lot of our listeners in the States really realize the struggles that a lot of European gamers have to go through, especially if they were RPG fans during that time, because like not a whole lot of games came out there. Yes, they got Terranigma, but even then it
Yeah,
was only
especially JRPGs.
but even then it was only like
Yeah.
certain countries that got it too. And another thing is that that's why modding was super popular over in Europe, because they just did not have access to a lot of these games, and a lot of times it wouldn't even be in the language that they know. So like it's a lot of European gamers have to go through so many hoops just to play the games that we had access to, which is crazy.
And after that, I became like I don't know how do you call such people, evangelist or something. I took my took my PS2 with me and didn't shut up about those games. I hope my friends didn't hate me at that time for it, but I put them in my bag. I went to friends with this Wonder Machine, which can play all sorts of games from anywhere, and showed them all Xenosaga. Maybe later other games like Metal Gear Solid or something too, but I loved spending evenings on the couch of a friend in front of a big TV and play Xenosaga together. I think
Yeah.
these games are, for me at least, they're perfect for something like that, like a let's play. It's another form of let's play, I would say. But sitting on the couch together, passing the controller back and forth, and beating a hard boss, and being um, getting to see the next big plot twist, or it's almost like watching a show together, and I love that so much about these games.
That's so cool.
Nice.
And it, yeah, again, it's just so fun to hear people's perspective on this stuff that aren't in the US.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I believe there was also like a lot of shops, a lot of independent stores in Europe that like just specialize in modding consoles. I remember in France you could find some stores that would actually sell stuff like that were from outside of that region. Was really expensive, but those kind of things were just really common out there.
Yeah, that's actually true. Is it not that common in the US to mod your console to play Japanese games or something?
So it depends on who you ask. There's a lot of people in this country that are afraid to do that. There are
Yeah.
enthusiasts and weirdos like myself who do mod consoles. Like I have a modded PS2. I have a whole bunch of modded consoles now, but it's not super common. And I think a big reason for that is a lot of the time we didn't need to. We got a good amount of the big ones in this country, so people didn't have to mod their consoles.
Yeah, it's really a big thing, because, like I said before, it was a whole lot of money of my allowance back in the day. Like I said, I was really, really nervous in the few days it took for the console, for the PS2 to ship it away, get it modded, ship it back. That was, yeah.
No, but that's cool though. Thank you for sharing all that.
I'm gonna say something that I wasn't gonna say in my answer, but I wanted to mention, like, Fox, you were asking about modding consoles. I've never really done that myself. I've thought about doing it, but I've always, especially I think back in that era, where you didn't really have to worry about a firmware update coming around and detecting some kind of modification and bricking your console. I think that was the thing that really kept me from
Yeah.
modifying my 3DS and my my Wii U. But I think it's really cool that you did that, and I'll mention it again. But yeah, I think I really enjoyed your story.
Yeah, it's just so fascinating because it's not so modding consoles is always one of those things in the States, at least, where like you'd hear people do it. It was like a mystical thing, like, oh man, this person modded their console. Damn, they must be like an enthusiast or some shit like that. But like you would always hear about the swap trick for like the PlayStation 1 and PS2, but I didn't know that many people who actually knew how to do it. But I do know that like if you go on European forums, you will see threads upon threads upon threads on how to do that stuff and how to play like backups and burnt discs. It's
Yeah, there's somebody else in another Discord that pretty much like has the exact same story as Fox, as
yeah.
far as, like, because I think he was from Spain, so it was the same kind of thing where it's like only had access to Xenosaga 2 initially, but then modded his PS2 and was able to play the first one.
Oh yeah, I heard that too. I think it was in the Resonant Arc podcast.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I remember. I really
Yeah. Oh
felt
yeah,
that.
because he was a guest on one of the episodes. Yep.
I guess especially interesting the further east you get in Europe as well too. Like if you ever read up on like what Russian gamers used to do in like the late 90s and early 2000s, like play games, it's actually like really fascinating. There's like entire markets dedicated to like selling backup games and CDRs essentially. It's wild stuff.
I have an instance though, and this is like off topic,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
like
go
I
for it.
have an instance of being a game that we didn't get here, but Europe got, was Shenmue 2 on the Dreamcast. And
Yes.
thankfully for the Dreamcast though, you didn't need to go to the effort of like installing a chip. Like there was something called a boot disk, so you just like put in the boot disk, and then it basically tells your console like, oh yeah, I'm a European Dreamcast, and then you just put in the disc. But I played Shenmue 2 that
Mhm.
way, and that was like an amazing experience. I love
Now,
Shenmue 2.
now, Fox, I have one more question to ask about you importing games. Did you need a special TV for that?
Um, I think I got lucky, because when I imported the when I ordered this chip thing, it came with a special RGB cable,
Okay.
and I heard that you need a TV which is compatible with that kind of
Yes.
cable. And I think I just was lucky that my
Okay, so
TV
you
was able to play that format.
okay, so you had okay, that's cool. So
Mm.
that's actually really sick that you had that because when I was living in France, one of the big struggles that we had was we had an NTSC PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, and so we couldn't play it on a lot of our TVs because of the hertz difference. So
Yeah, I
and
just wanted to say probably the frequency. Yeah.
yes, the frequency difference. So what we actually did was we knew an American family that was selling some stuff and they were selling a TV and we just bought their TV for like really cheap and that was the TV we used for the PS2. And I know what you did. You had the RGB cable. Those were common in Europe because you got a lot of the TVs over in Europe actually had SCART ports. North American TVs do not have that, or it's incredibly rare unless you're buying a professional grade television, like the ones they would have in hospitals or television studios. Like I actually own one of those. I have a professional grade Sony CRT, and that can take the RGB signal, but even then you have to use an adapter. Whereas a lot of European ones, you can just plug it in SCART directly and be done with it. So I know the RGB cables can sometimes accept both signals, and in some cases, you can even just switch it on the fly. So you might have been very fortunate to just had that feature. But yeah, I wanted to ask that because I always think it's interesting. Some of the weird stuff that you got to do with it.
Yeah, it also enabled me to play the better versions of certain games. I remember I had an issue with Odin Sphere, which was another PS2 game, and the PAL version. I'm not sure, but I think the game was programmed to run at 30 frames per second. I think I'm not sure. I haven't looked too much into it, but the PAL version only ran at 25. I think PAL is 25 hertz, and it would occasionally stutter all the time because of this timing difference. And so that was one of the games I got the American version for, because the European version had some of these performance issues.
Wow. Oh.
Okay, anyway, but we can go to Bob's.
Yeah. All right, Bob, tell us your Xeno origin story.
All right. Well, I just wanted to say I really enjoyed Fox's story. That was really interesting to hear. Your journey to becoming familiar with the franchise. For me, I'm gonna date myself. I started with the original release of Xenogears when it came out. I heard about it from word of mouth. I was on an AOL message board where we talked about console RPGs, and people were really excited about Xenogears. People who had played it were really hyping it up. They thought it was like amazing. That there hadn't been a story like it before, and so I was like, yeah, no, I really want to play this. So I was maybe like 13 or 14 at the time I played it, and I beat it. And I think I understood the story at like a very cursory level. I didn't completely understand it, and at the time, it's interesting to think about now, but we didn't really have like the perfect works translated, so we didn't really have like I don't know if you want to call it like a codex, but that was like I think key to really figuring out the full story of Xenogears. So there, like on the message board that I was posting on, there was a lot of back and forth trying to um talk about like plot points and kind of unraveling the story, but I think it was kind of a mystery even back then, and I think that was part of the appeal, at least for me it was. And so when Xenosaga came out, I remember or when it was announced and the trailer was out, I remember getting really excited about it. I played it when it came out, and I really liked it. I know I remember some people were maybe a little disappointed it wasn't quite the same as Xenogears, but I thought it was really cool. I kind of when Xenosaga 2 came out, I remember at least over here the reception was mixed because it wasn't quite the same as Xenosaga 1, and I kind of I delayed playing it because I thought I wasn't going to like it. And I finally got around to playing it when Xenosaga 3 came out, because I was like, oh, I should play 2 in order to play 3. And I thought it was okay. I recently replayed the whole series a couple years ago, and I really like Xenosaga 2 now. I think it gets maybe a little bit too much I think it's a little misunderstood. It has some issues, but I like it. And then Xenosaga 3, I played when it came out, and I love that game. It's obviously like just kind of a like they really figured out how to completely execute like the ideas behind Xenosaga, the gameplay ideas, how they wanted to present the story. It feels like it's like that perfect balance there. And so yeah, I haven't really gotten into like the Xenoblade games. I have them, and
Mhm.
I've been meaning to get around to them, but really my heart is in those first four Xeno titles,
Mhm.
Xenogears and the Xenosaga games.
Mhm.
I really love them.
Oh,
It's
nice.
always interesting to hear how much the expectations can change how you experience the game. Just like my story before with I loved Suikoden 2, and then the third came out and I didn't like it as much, despite so many people loving it. And the same is absolutely true for the whole Xeno series. There are so
Mhm.
many Xenogears fans who didn't like Saga because it was
Mhm.
so different, and the same we have now again with Xenoblade fans or Saga fans hating Xenoblade, or maybe not hating, but I think it's you need a certain level. It's almost a talent to set your expectations right, to really go at something with a fresh mind. And I had to learn that myself as well. At the beginning, I had big problems with Xenoblade,
Mhm.
but I eventually learned to love it.
Mhm.
Xenoblade 2 was the first one I really, really loved. I fell in love with, and now, in my mind, all three series are just on the same level, kinda. Maybe Saga a bit higher for me personally because I'm
Mhm.
biased, but
No,
I really love all three franchises.
yeah, I agree. And also, yeah, it can sometimes depend on which series you got into. Because yeah, I started with Saga myself, so tend to lean towards it as well. So I fully understand that.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah.
They're all very
All right.
different, and it's just cool to kind of just appreciate each of them on their
Mm-hmm.
own terms. And I think they all do different things, and of course, you're going to resonate with some more than others. It also could depend
Mm-hmm.
on where you are in life. Like, you know,
It,
I started with Gears myself, and then I played Saga in college. I played Saga kind of late, but I played it in college, and then Blade I was there from like the get go when that finally came out, and Blade One. I've spoken about this before, how that came out at a time in my life where I think I really needed a game like Blade, so it really resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a huge soft spot for Blade One, but you know, I think it's cool that we have three distinct series, and they all have their own flavor, and
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't necessarily make one quote objectively better than the other one, but like they're all different, and I like that. There's
Mm-hmm.
variety.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really embraced that too. The other day I was thinking about Pied Piper especially. Um, the Xeno series in general is really, how do you say, it's very varied in its
Mm-hmm.
settings. You have
Mm-hmm.
yes.
some games that are like fantasy games almost. You have sci-fi games. You have things like Saga, which is like this, how do you call these shows, like something like Star Trek or so.
Oh
Mm-hmm.
um,
yeah, absolutely.
Very high sci-fi. And Pied Piper is like a sci-fi um,
So
cop
like
drama. I would always
yeah, it's like
always
a
say
noir, like a film
it's
noir kind
noir.
of
Yeah,
story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's noir. It's sci-fi. There's nothing like it. I would say the closest thing I can think of is something like Ghost in the Shell, or maybe Cyberpunk, if you would play a cop in Cyberpunk or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's very unique, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good
Yeah.
segue
I
into
I
you know,
oh sorry, go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say like that's a good segue into like the Pied Piper and what this current project is. So you guys want to talk about what exactly this Xenosaga Pied Piper remake project is?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Fox.
Okay, that's why I'm here actually. So where should I start? I think we didn't have that question. Anyway, yeah, Pied Piper is a spin-off game of Xenosaga, which came out around the release of Xenosaga 2, I think.
Mhm.
A little bit after, maybe. It released in episodic episodes, and it was only on Japanese phones. It never released outside of Japan,
Mhm.
which is the same problem I, as a European, had with the series in general as before. But the biggest problem here is not only is it already a pretty niche series, and um, it was something that was only available on a Japanese. I'm not an expert here actually, so I don't quite know how that worked, but
Mhm.
you could only download it on Japanese phones if you
Mhm.
had a certain service. I don't even know, or I don't even remember which provider who provided that service where that
Is it
was hosted.
Vodafone, something like that? That some starts
Mhm.
with a V, I think.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Mhm.
But take it with a grain of salt.
Hmm.
I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, it just released on Japanese phones and was never localized or released outside of that. And like with any of these only digital games, as soon as the service isn't there anymore and people don't have phones like that anymore, the game eventually gets lost.
Mhm.
Mm. And there were never plans from Namco to release it in any way outside of Japan. So there's a big chunk of story that just never came to us or
Mhm.
to the US, or here in the West yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Anyhow, um, yeah.
Yes. It was kind of lucky that, I mean, well, the earliest we got was that translation from Chaos Lace, which I'm forever grateful that they did that translation. And I just remember back in the day just reading it like a almost like a play or a script, um, which wasn't the same as, actually playing the game, but it was well enough that were able to actually experience that story.
Yeah, and it's mentioned in Xenosaga 3, and there are,
Hmm.
data entries. You can kind of experience like a summary version of the story, but it was really interesting, like playing the game after CycloneFox completed it, and it's like, wow, this is like you get the gist of it from the summary in 3, but playing through the story, it's a different experience.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and just reading a summary like that, it also leaves out all the stuff that isn't so important. Um, so that's a shame too if you only read the summary.
Right. So I guess that kind of goes into our question of what made you decide to create or basically create the remake. But I guess I mean,
Mhm.
I guess the obvious answer would be so everybody would be able to
Mhm.
experience it. But what were your thoughts going into it?
Yeah, it occurred to me like 3 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, I did the same thing that I did 20 years ago. A friend of mine got really interested in the Xenos series,
Hmm.
and because I couldn't keep my mouth shut about it, sometimes we we played a lot of Final Fantasy together, Final Fantasy 14
Hmm.
and other games, and eventually he said that he's interested in the series. So I said, okay, why don't we start playing them together? And so we started all the way back with Xenogears and started sessions in Discord, and he would play through the game, and I would just be there and watch him,
Oh.
watch over his shoulder, and we would talk and have fun together. And so eventually, we actually made it all the way up to Xenosaga episode 3, and that
Mhm.
is the gap where you realize, okay, there's something missing here. We were
Mm.
able to watch a missing year together that somehow went fine. I'd say it's not optimal. You
Mhm.
can watch that on YouTube, a fan translation of that together.
Mhm.
But even then, you had to pause all the time, and it wasn't really. It was somehow manageable, but we didn't want to do that for Pied Piper because it was much longer, and we would have to pause every time. I think everyone who watched the playlist from Valak Turtle on YouTube with a with Chaos Land's translation as a subtitle knows that how that experience plays out. You you probably, if you can't read at God's speed, you probably have to pause every second for every
Mhm.
text box, and it's not a really pleasant experience. I would say personally.
Mhm.
So I thought it was a real shame that you can't just play it. We didn't experience that story together, that friend and I. We just skipped it. I think I gave him a broad summary, or we said, okay, it's not so important,
Mhm.
and skipped it. But at the same time, I still watched that playlist from Rolluck Turtle myself at the time. I only knew the translation from Chaos Lands, but I think Rolluck Turtle had uploaded that playlist with the subtitles. I think a year before, maybe. So I didn't know it myself. And when I watched through that, I thought the story is really, really good. Actually, it was a real shame we couldn't play that together.
Mhm.
And so I thought maybe it's not. It wouldn't be so hard, or it is actually it is hard. But I thought it could be feasible to use that and build a project in RPG Maker on it. My first thought was to just reconstruct the story, only the story.
Uh-huh.
Um, so maybe have something with very little gameplay or maybe no gameplay at all, and just the story to be able to experience it that way.
Mhm.
But the more the project grew, the more it felt like something I could really make an actual game out of it.
Nice. Yeah, it's definitely much more immersive and different from than just reading a script. So that I'm glad that you pursued that and expanded upon that project. Um, okay. So what is basically what are your roles, both Fox and Bob? What were your roles going into this project?
Mhm. Okay, like I just said, I'm I'm the one who created this project,
Mhm.
and I did most of the stuff except for the character portraits and the music,
Mhm.
because those are two fields I'm not so good at. I can't make music at all. At the beginning, maybe you saw the demo. I don't know, but for the demo, I just used stock RPG Maker music and
Mm.
some royalty-free music I found online, which I thought would kind of match. I'm really glad that that Bob approached me and said, "Hey, I could make music for you." you can't imagine how thankful I am to that guy.
I bet.
And um, for the character portraits in the beginning, I just used some of the concept art you could find on Xenosaga wikis. But yeah, that was the beginning of it, and I not only clicked it together in RPG Maker, but I also do a lot of programming. Oh, I should mention I didn't do all the graphics for the game myself. Most of the sprites and backgrounds and so on are from me. But there's also later, after I released the demo, I also got great help from people like Watte, Beardmore from the Resonant Arc Discord, McDanger Noodle, and Corianders, and I think a few others too who helped me out with some character sprites or some backgrounds. So if you come across some background art and you think, wow, that looks really neat, that's probably not from me. Um, but most of it is probably. And yeah, like I said, I also did a lot of programming. I did not use any. I know RPG Maker in the Maker community, plugins are really common and really famous. But I didn't want to use plugins because uh, they they not always do exactly what you want. And I come from a programmer background, so I can program anything myself I want. So I did things like the enemies who follow you on the map instead of random encounters. That's from me. I changed the battle system to be more like the turn-based order from Xenosaga 3, for example. I changed after some requests from Bob. I also changed the way how the game handles music, how the music manager and the music methods of the game work. There are some neat little things. I don't want to spoil, but there are some neat little things. For example, in the last dungeon of the game, where the music engine of the game does things which the RPG Maker engine normally can't. That's from me. And right now I'm on it to change a lot of the menus. I added some of the menus already, but just the other day I released a new version where I overhauled a lot of the UI and things like that. Localization, the method to how localization works. I don't want to go too much into it, but I do a lot of programming and the scripting of the scenario. And oh, I shouldn't forget, I also rewrote the whole English script. So the localization you have in the game now, it is based on the one from Valak Turtle, which is based on Chaos Dance. But the new one, I made it. I rewrote most of it because I don't want to talk down on what Chaoslands did. Absolutely not. And Valak Turtle is also working on his own new localization for the upcoming English patch for the game dump. But and that will be much better. But I thought the original one in game form, it was a little, I would say, a little too stiff. And I wanted to change some things here and there, like Joaquin calling his dad Papa, for example, which is much closer to the Japanese original, but is totally different from how we saw it in Xenosaga Episode 1 in the Backflash, and things like that. It had to be I wanted to make a new version which is more consistent with the rest of the series and how the people talk. And I also did another localization for the German. For German, I did this is the first German localization of Pied Piper, which I also added. So that's about the most things I do. managing tests, deploying the game, things like that.
was a lot.
Yeah. But,
So, oh, go on.
oh yeah, so sorry. Just wanted to say real quick. I chose. I think, also, it's a lot of work, yeah. But
Mhm.
I also picked a special. I picked a game which is not too long, and I was very particular with the scope of the project, so it's
Mhm.
manageable by just one guy in
Mhm.
a reasonable time frame.
Mhm. Exactly.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of write off the coattails of what Fox was saying. He
Mhm.
had already mentioned, I'm mostly just contributing music to the project. I did some testing just because I did like a full playthrough, and
Mhm.
I figured, if there's some suggestions or kind of if there's any bugs that I came across, I figured I'd report them. But yeah,
Mhm.
by and large, my contribution to the project is the soundtrack, and I did some sound effects, but not many.
Yeah, yeah, true. Not to forget those, yeah.
Mhm.
And the new version I just deployed, there I implemented a lot of recent, what would you say? Um, it's a little bit like the music directors edition because how would you say you
Uh, so what
you pro-
happened was so Fox implemented all the music to begin with, and then I had wanted to do it earlier, but I just didn't have the time. And thankfully, Fox entertained me with like I had like a list of, I think it was around maybe like 50 like suggestions, and I
Mm,
made sure to frame it that way. It's like, hey, if because you already released this game, you don't have to do these, but like if you want to listen to like the suggestions that I have as far as like how you might want to tweak the music to maybe make the scenes flow a little bit better. Here's that list of suggestions that I had. So I would describe it overall as like we kind of dialed in the soundtrack a little bit. There was a little bit more we I after playing through the game, I was like really inspired by playing the game, and so I actually wrote more music, and partly to like create pieces that we needed a certain mood for that we didn't have already.
Mhm.
And some just kind of reacting to the game itself. Like I was really inspired to write some emotional pieces that I felt like, hey, if we have this, like I feel like it's gonna really like the certain scenes that this would play in, it's gonna really sell them more. Because
Mhm.
I'm really, I'm interested as a Xenosaga fan in like hearing the Xenosaga music, if we could bring more callbacks to the original soundtracks in there. But
Mhm.
yeah, like Fox was really patient with me, and I really appreciate that, Fox, in entertaining all those suggestions, because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't taking up too much of your time and making those adjustments. So it meant a lot to me that you did that.
yeah, of course. It was a list of really, really great suggestions, and I think they really help improve the atmosphere for a lot of these scenes.
Nice. All right. Okay. Well, moving along, what were some of like the biggest hurdles that you all ran into while creating this remake?
Yeah, for me, absolutely the music and art. That was those were the biggest hurdles, and I'm just really glad that I met both Forrest and Bob, who
Mhm.
would help me get across these hurdles. Um, yeah, I would say that's it.
And were there any parts of the game that like you weren't sure you were gonna be able to fully adapt? Like, did you see a part from the original game where you're like, I don't know how I'll be able to do this?
Yeah, these are I would say these are little obstacles here and there. For example, I think maybe I shouldn't even say that, or maybe I shouldn't even put too much um, focus on that, because I'm not even very proud of how it eventually turned out. But for example, is it at the end of, I think at the end of chapter 1, you're in this digital world, and an alarm breaks out, and the floor and walls start lighting up in red, one part after the other. And I didn't know how I could make that in RPG Maker. Eventually, I found a way to do it, but that would also make the game crash for some people.
Oh.
Yeah, LXIX, who did some playtesting, came when they came to that scene, and the game started pre-caching. The scene started, the game went into black, and the game started pre-caching all the image files I put there to somehow recreate this alarm scene. The game would just crash for them, which it didn't do in my version of the game. And
Oh.
so I had a lot of problems recreating that error until I eventually found the problem where I needed to do some code hardening in the Pixie engine, which is an engine. It's an engine, a graphics engine on JavaScript, on which the RPG Maker engine runs on. But it's all JavaScript, so it's all open source essentially. So I could go and debug all I could debug in all of it, but I had to go really low level and change some of the code, not only of my game or the RPG Maker, but even a level below that in this Pixie engine thing. But that was something that I couldn't find for months. It
no.
took quite some time. I thought it was away, but then it came back, and that was a really annoying bug.
Oh, jeez.
But I think you always have in software design, you always have things like that here and there.
Glad you're able
But
to figure it out.
yeah, but I think there's nothing where I really thought right from the start I couldn't do that, because I think when you're able to program, you can figure out a way to do anything. That's a great liberating thing, especially if you work with a game engine like that, and you're not able to program your own things. Like I said with the plugins before, you either have to find some resource online which does what you want, or you're pretty much screwed and have to find ways around it. But if you are able if you're able to write a programming language, and you can go in there and just change methods or add your own stuff, it's very liberating, and you will always find ways to fix or solve things. It just might take longer, maybe.
Okay. I bet that was probably the hardest part recreating in Pied Piper as well.
Yeah. So I know you had also mentioned Forrest working with you with the art. Can you let us know like how you got in touch with Forrest to get them involved in the art?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, like I said before, shout out to one person I just saw in my notes. I wanted to shout them out earlier when I started to to work on the game. As you know, I used this concept arts, original concept arts from Pied Piper, which were uploaded by Sikaya. Sikaya is an artist herself, and they were the ones who uploaded the concept arts to the wiki, which I was super grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
But very very early on, I saw that there were certain. I had a lot of. It just wasn't enough. I hit some limitations very early on. Because there weren't concept arts for characters like Sharon, for example, or other characters later.
Mm-hmm.
And even for the characters I had, like Jan and Mikael and so on, certain faces were or emotions were missing. So I would either have to redraw them myself or just leave them out, which would be a big shame, of course. And so I remember that there was a dude in Japan who drew a fan manga of Pied Piper,
Mm-hmm.
um, who goes by the nickname Forest, and he has been working on this big dojin for I think 15 years by now. I'm not so sure myself. Um, and so I wanted to get in touch with him and ask him if I could maybe my idea wasn't even to ask him to draw art for me, but if I just could use art from the manga
Mm-hmm.
and colorize it and put it in my game as avatars as uh, uh, pictures for the characters. And yeah, I remember that once some of his some of his web manga were uploaded on YouTube by Valkyrie XY,
Mm-hmm.
which they aren't anymore because Forrest doesn't want that. But at the time, I think it was, but I'm not sure. Anyway, so I got in touch with Valkyrie, and I think I did it over Twitter and asked them if they knew Forrest. But they couldn't help me directly. But they knew that they knew another guy called Lugal Banda. Yeah, they said they said I could go to this or that Discord server where I should write a guy called Lugal Banda if they could uh, get me into contact with Forrest.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did. And Luca Wander was very, very helpful, very friendly. I wasn't even expecting. He was very. Uh, both of them. Valkyrie, of course, is also very nice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Um, and so Luca Bender said, I think they knew Forrest, but not personally, but they knew how to get in contact with Forrest. And
Mm-hmm.
so in the beginning, the contact was over Lugalbender. I would ask Lugalbender, hey, this and that, and they would translate it into Japanese for Forrest and pass the message on to Forrest, and
Mm-hmm.
the other way around. Until it was eventually too much for Lugalbender, and he asked Forrest if we could just go into direct contact.
Mm-hmm.
And so Forrest was nice enough because Forrest was very interested in the project right from the start,
Mm-hmm.
and he was nice enough to install Discord for me and get into direct contact.
Mm.
And I can. Or I've learned a little bit of Japanese myself. I can talk a little bit, but it's not. It's no more than just I don't know, maybe very simple small talk or something. It wouldn't be enough
Mm.
for this kind. So I was using a lot of deep learning AI to just translate my messages to him, maybe
Mm-hmm.
change some things here and there, um, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And for Forrest, it was very important to get to know the motive why I'm doing this,
Mm-hmm.
because he didn't want his art to go into a project that I'm just I'm just making like to earn money or to get fame or something like that with his art. So that was something that was very important to him. That I'm actually a true fan who does it out of love, and I think the answers I gave him. I think he was kind of testing me a little bit. I don't know, but I think the answers I gave him were enough for him to convince him that this is actually a passion project from fans for fans, and he totally wanted to support that.
Awesome. Yeah, because I've seen well, Valkyrie XY, yeah, friend of the pod. I've seen Valkyrie post some of Forrest's art in the past, and they're a really good artist. So that's really awesome how that all worked out.
Yeah, I'm really thankful to Valkyrie and Lugal Bender and everyone for making that happen.
All right. So we got a few questions from LexCare. Let's see. One of the questions is, what is the process of learning RPG Maker like? Did you need a game development degree in order to create a game or a whole game out of it? I'm referring to the remake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. RPG Maker by itself is actually a very, very yeah, how should I say, the entrance barrier is very low actually. The first time I worked with RPG Maker was all the way back in, I don't know, it must have been in my early teens. It was RPG Maker 2000 back then. That
Oh
was
yeah.
before XP. And I spent a lot of time with RPG Maker 2000 back then. At that time, I was always very interested in making games in general. That has always been a great passion for me. The first time I tried to make a game was with a program named Mediator, which is actually it's actually not for making games. It's actually a program for making presentations like PowerPoint or something. But
Oh.
that program had some big differences. One of them being that it created an actual executable, which so you didn't need a mediator to run mediator things. So you would create an executable which you can put on another computer and just use it there. And the other big thing is it was all object-based, like object-based programming languages, for example. So you could actually define objects and tell them how to react if you click on something, or how they react to each other and things like that. So it was pretty advanced, but it was not meant to make games with. But that's what I did. I tried to make something like an I think you could say a point and click adventure, more or less. But I was very very little at that point. And later I would also get a disc of I think it was in a magazine where there was a I think I don't know if that's something that is still a thing, but back in the day, if you bought video game magazines, there would sometimes be full versions of games in them. And one day I got a magazine which had Unreal One, the first Unreal Engine, the first Unreal game in it, which was also the first Unreal Engine game. And that game came with with the Unreal Editor. And so when I got that, I spent much more time with the Unreal Editor than playing the game. Actually, I was just obsessed with the Unreal Editor, and and I spent months and months in this engine. With, like I said before, I had no internet at the time, so I had no real resources to find tutorials or something, and I didn't even know how to move the camera right and things like that, and just had a lot of fun of copying objects, putting them somewhere else, and didn't even know how to make your own rooms and things like that. And I spent like I think 3 years finding out how this Unreal thing works, and until I eventually had internet at my own computer, and then I found out that there were a lot of forums online where people were asking questions and helping each other. And so I started answering questions myself because I learned so much about the Unreal Engine and knew how every object works and things like that, because I spent so much time in that. And that was, you could say, the start of my journey to make video games, and would greatly influence how what I would eventually learn and do professionally, which is programming. I studied um, computer science and media later, where I learned a lot of programming languages and things like that. And now I work professionally as a programmer for an insurance company here in Germany. But in my free time, I still love to make games, and this project was really a passion project for me, you could say.
Nice.
But I
That's
think to come back to the original question, you don't need to really be able to program. But if you do, i- it's like with a lot of these things, you can interact with them on a surface level, and I think you can actually, without any programming, using plugins and things like that, you can actually make very decent and good games with it. But if you put in a little bit more, um, the sky is the ceiling, I would say.
By the way, which version of RPG Maker did you use for the remake?
The newest one, the RPG Maker MZ.
Oh, okay. Nice.
I didn't know this, but I thought at first that let me think about it. I think the last version was already in JavaScript, I think. But when I started the project, I thought that only this newest version could run in a web browser, and the language would be JavaScript. So I decided to use that because of that.
Okay. All right. So next question. What was the process and bug testing like? Did you need a debug room? Says LuxCare, and also spoiler alert, I asked for it. I'm guessing that's a inside joke there.
Yeah, and it also already answers the question, kinda. Because yeah, when I came to this group, Vector Translations, so after I released the demo, people from Vector Translations reached out to me. I think it was Valak Turtle. I'm not. Oh, sure, it was. It was Valak Turtle who wrote to me. Um, I had made this announcement on gotzip.net on the forum there that I released a demo, and I'm totally planning to make the whole game. And so Valak Turtle reached out to me and asked me if he could invite me to this group on Discord. I made a mistake in the beginning. I miscredited him, so I was a bit. I was really ashamed of that,
Aww.
and sorry, but he was all cool. He was very cool with it. I could fix that really fast, and so it wasn't a big deal. Yeah, but things like that, please, if I do mistakes, please come at me and just tell me. I will fix them immediately, of course. Anyway, on this Discord group, this vector translations group, they were kind enough to give me the right to create my own channels there, and so I made channels just for testing and put a bot in there, so we could make bot commands like /bug or /suggestion or things like that. I also installed the same bot on the Discord server from the Wattelot, from Watte. Watte or Watte? I'm sorry. Anyhow, this would give me in this way I could provide a test version to the people who are willing to test the game for me, and they could then make screenshots or things like that of things where they think here's a bug or here's a problem or something here's missing or whatever. And they could use these bot commands, which would automatically create a card into my ticket system, so I didn't forget anything and could have my own website where I manage these tickets that people were opening. That was a great help, but eventually LXIX, rightly so, came at me and said that it is very irritating for them to always have a save game for certain moments, and if they wanted to go back to a scene and review it and things like that. So for the test version of the game, I added a little debug room, which from where you could just rise a level and go to any scene in the game and things like that. So so the testing experience is very different from the normal playing experience of the game, obviously.
And then you took part in this process as well, Bob?
Yeah, I did, and I really I thought it was a great idea to integrate the ticketing system with Discord. It worked out really well, made it really streamlined. You know, any kind of bug that I came across or any kind of suggestion that came into my head, it was really easy to just go onto the Discord server and leverage those bots that Fox had mentioned. And yeah, the debug room, I use it a little bit too. It was really helpful especially after Fox would maybe change some music that would play in a particular cutscene. I was able to go back and leverage the debug room to review the change and just see how it works now.
Sounds very useful.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of you, Bob, how were you able to piece together the new soundtrack for the fan remake? What was the process?
So it's interesting because I guess I'm kind of like pretty much the sole contributor. There's one piece in the game that's not by me. But at the beginning of this, it wasn't exactly clear that was going to be the case. There were other people who had voiced interest in contributing music to the project, but it was still kind of up in the air. But what ended up happening is over time, I'm assuming that they just got busy and weren't able to end up contributing. But over time, like I ended up essentially being the primary contributor of music to the project. So at the beginning, I had approached Fox about like, hey, what's going to be like the philosophy? What's the approach here? Because and I was probably a little too quick to come up with this idea. But I had thought like, well, maybe we should just kind of like clean slate this, and maybe what I can do is I can make this sound and pull music from the PlayStation 2 entries, and because I was kind of I was a little skeptical of the original soundtrack because like the loops are only about 30 seconds long. They're
Yeah,
very
it's
short loops
Mhm.
typically.
yeah, you
But
can
there was some
now
push.
sorry, you can now listen to all of them on Watte's YouTube channel, and some of them you will be shocked how short they are.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, and it makes a lot of sense too, because like I'm assuming there's probably some consideration into wanting to keep the file size
Oh,
of the
right.
game down, because like they're
Mhm.
playing it, they were downloading it through like the cell phone network, and then also like there's that consideration, but and this is all speculative on my behalf. I've done some thinking about this. It's like I have to imagine that maybe they were thinking most people are going to be playing this on the go. They're probably not going to be listening to the soundtrack. So we probably
Uh,
shouldn't spend too much time, like, too many resources in developing a soundtrack that has like these longer loops. But I was talking with CycloneFox about like, well, what's the approach here? And that was my initial instinct. But Fox kind of pushed back at that and it was like, well, I think we should, there should be more of the original music in this game, and it caused me to kind of go back and look at the material, and I actually grew a deeper appreciation for the original Pied Piper soundtrack, especially like there's the Sharon music, which I took and I kind of extended. I tweaked it a little bit and I added a new part to it, but yeah, I really grew fond of that piece, and other pieces as well. And what ended up happening is just because of my availability, this whole soundtrack kind of came in waves. It was kind of an iterative process where I had like an initial batch that I gave to Fox, and then as we kept going, I think it was like more of a balance between original and PS2 Xenosaga music and the original Pied Piper music that I arranged. And I feel like we kind of figured out a good balance between them all. But like my involvement in this project is kind of this idea that I had, which is kind of like if they were to ever remake Xenosaga, which I don't think they ever will, but it would be great to like have a remake where like musically they got Mitsuda in a room, they got Yuki Kajiura in a room, and it's like, hey, like you guys composed these two different ends of the Xenosaga trilogy, but like let's unify it and like let's kind of create like because like there's some pieces in I feel like there's some pieces in Xenosaga 1 that felt like there were setups that like there was going to be some payoffs either in episode 2 or 3 musically, and obviously because Mitsuda was no longer working on the project at that point, and I'm not sure like why the music wasn't reused. It could be just like that was his wishes, or maybe they just decided like the new composer wanted to just do a fresh take on it. But we never got to see some of those see like a payoff to some of the material that's introduced in episode 1. So for me, like this was like, okay, I could bring back the Ormus theme. I could do an arrangement of that because there's there's some element of that in this story. And then there was like the Beach of Nothingness piece of music. That was a piece that I feel like is representative of this idea of there being this dark fate that runs all throughout Xenosaga. And so I approached Fox about bringing that piece into the mix, and I did. It's like a pretty modest arrangement, but I really liked it, and I thought that Fox employed it really well. But yeah, my that wish of like, oh, it'd be cool like to one day hear like this kind of this Xenosaga remake with like Mitsuda and Kajiura collaborating. That was kind of like, oh, this is an opportunity for me to kind of like play with that idea in Pied Piper to kind of like bridge those musical worlds between episode 1 and episodes 2 and 3. So it was just like me kind of geeking out as a fan and having fun with it. And I would say I probably lean a little bit more towards Mitsuda. Like I really love Yasunori Mitsuda's music in Xenogears and Xenosaga Episode 1. I love Episode 2 and 3 soundtrack as well. I think if you ask me, I think 3's is like the best executed as far as how it's implemented in the game. I think it's just absolutely perfectly executed. But yeah, we kind of iterated upon the soundtrack over time and kind of figured out this balance and like well, I guess that's the next question is like we're still working on the game. I'm still working on the soundtrack and I'm kind of winding down on my end, but there's still some things that I'd like to polish before, you know, I'm completely done.
Mm-hmm.
When I eventually do something like an optional dungeon or something, I will come back to you and and ask for more music.
Sounds good.
Nice. Yeah, and that's a genius way of thinking about it because yeah, that I did love both Yasunori Mitsuda and Yuki Kajiura's work. So thinking of it in a way that marries those two like sounds together was genius, and I really wish they would do that in real life, like collaborate in real life on the Xenosaga project. But yeah, I kind of have my doubts as well. But
And
that's genius.
I really have to compliment you, Bob, for that. I was thinking about it the other day that I sometimes think that the soundtrack of the game now, it really sounds like this tribute to all of Xenosaga, or even Xenogears to an extent. But it's really, to me, it really feels like a cross between the Mitsuda part and the Kajura part put together into one awesome tribute. And I really love that. I'm really honored to have this from you. I also wanted to note um, because this project um, because Bob, I, and Forrest, we are all from 3 different continents all over the world. It was often like a little present that I got up to in the morning when I went got up, looked at my phone, and was looking forward to a new message from Bob or from Forrest, and it was like a new little neat present here and there all the time. It was a really awesome time that when I got maybe a little new piece of music or a new artwork from Forrest, it was really nice to have that.
It was an honor to be able to, you know, contribute to something Xenosaga related. Like
Mhm.
for me, like I think I already said this, but to kind of reiterate, like I wanted to contribute because I wanted to like have a Pied Piper game that sounded like the PS2 games. And
Mhm.
like that was like really cool being able to finally when Fox finished the game to be able to play it, you
Mhm.
know, just for primarily for like the story, being able to experience it. But then I like when I was playing through it, I mean I kind of there were times when I kind of like it wasn't like I had authored any of the music. It was just there, you know, and it was really cool
Mhm.
to, you know, play a part in that storytelling. Because I really enjoy the storytelling that's present in these games. It's and I think Pied Piper surprised me in its storytelling. It's
Mhm.
because I think it's easy to underestimate it because it is you know, it was sourced from like the cell phone game, but it's clear that, you know, even though it was a cell phone game, that it's a full-on Xenosaga story, you know. And in some ways I think it's kind of unique in that like it's there are elements well it's almost standalone in some ways. There are threads that tie
Right.
into like the larger story, but I think it's really
Mhm.
cool how it's almost this standalone story
Mhm.
amongst like the other 3 mainline games.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Mhm.
it's like a neat little side story. And what you said earlier about it being like a true Xenosaga story, I felt that too, which was the reason why I wanted to make it into a game. And I hope that my project helps, that it now not only feels like a true Xenosaga stories, but also like a full-on Xenosaga experience with gameplay features like the traps and having segment doors and being able to explore a little bit and things like that. That is what I've been working towards most recently a lot.
Yeah, I was kind of excited when I saw that you added like segment doors and the traps. I'm like, wow, this is really is Xenosaga.
Glad to
Yeah,
hear
one of
that.
the things that I oh sorry, go ahead.
No, I
I was
was
just
ready.
say
I was finished.
I don't know, did because I'm not familiar with like the playthrough of the game that so I'm not familiar with the original game, but did you add Fox like the field like special abilities, or was that present? I thought that was like really cool. Like they didn't do that in any of the other like Xenosaga games, that each character like you swap to a different character, and on the field they have like a different ability
No,
that's useful in navigating through the dungeon.
the field skills were actually they came from the original Pied Piper. I only made one
Ah.
little change,
Mhm.
that is Melissa's field skill. In the original, if you walk around, you later, after the ship thing, where the game starts introducing the field skills,
Mhm.
Melissa's original field skill was to cut the encounter rate in half. And then I thought, okay, how could I do that in my version of the game? So
Mhm.
instead of doing that, my idea was, okay, um, I have the enemies on the map and they can normally hear you. What about if Melissa's suit would enable you to sneak easier? So
Oh.
instead of cutting the encounter rate in half, Melissa's suit makes it so you can run around and you won't be hurt by the enemies. They need to see you if you are on Melis. If you run around with another character, they can hear you from a certain distance.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a smart change.
That is a very clever
Yeah,
change.
I like that. That's a great idea. The way that you adapted that worked out really well.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Well, if you can say what I know you're still working on the game. So do you have any next updates or ideas you have in mind for the remake?
Right now, yeah, just the other day, I wanted to say that just yesterday, I actually released a new version of the game, version
Mm-hmm.
1.2, and it's the biggest update yet
Mm-hmm.
because now we have the full version, the full game is play is sorry, um, you're able to play the full game in French now. Before
Ah.
that, it was
That's
like
cool.
it was only half of it was translated by. It is the translation comes from Dams 50. Shout out to them. They also made the original Pied Piper translation from, I don't know, 18, almost 20 years ago. They
Oh.
translated Pied Piper in French back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And now they reached out to me if I would like to add French to my game. And if there are other people out there who would like to add another language to the game, please do that. I saw the other day on YouTube that someone uploaded the intro of my game with
Mm-hmm.
Spanish subtitles,
Ah.
and you don't need to do any programming or hacking or something like that. You can just go into the game files and add your own language into a table there. You don't need any knowledge in programming or anything, and the game will automatically understand and see that there's a fifth language, for example, in this example with Spain.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to do that, just reach out to me, and or I will reach out to you if I see something like that online, and I would like to add it into my I wanted to say official repository. It's not official because it's a fan project, but you know what I mean. So we can have that in future releases of the game, maybe. And my personal focus right now is to improve the UI of the game. That's something I put in the on the back burner when I was doing when I was making the game. Because it's one of the features that would be neat, but isn't entirely needed. My first, the most important thing was to have the whole scenario in the game and release the full game in English, but or in other languages. But things like that, optional things, maybe an optional dungeon or the UI overhaul I'm doing right now, that is something I didn't want to make for the initial release because I was fearing that there might be a feature creep and the game would never come out. So so now that the game is out, I have time to go back and do something like that. And I would say you should look at the new menus and stuff. I think they turned out neat. And another big feature that came with this new version 1.2 is the 4 new songs that Bob made. Bob has already sent me a 5th new song or a new version of an old song, which I would also like to incorporate in future updates. So I won't stop working on that too soon, I'd say. But of course, I eventually want to broaden my horizon again and go as other game projects in the future. Maybe go back to Unreal Engine. I always loved that and would like to go into 3D development back eventually. But this project was just perfect for the time frame and my personal love for the franchise and giving something to the community. But maybe I want to do something original in the future too, of course. But I will never let down Pied Piper. I will, if there's something need to be added, I think I will always come back to it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will say that like I'm still also working still on the game. As far as like what might come next, I don't have anything lined up. I think I'd like to put out a soundtrack album for the stuff that's on this Pied Piper remake. I think that would be cool to have to compile. So after, and I'll wait until after I know that we're kind of finished. But yeah, after that point, I'll probably compile it and sequence it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to having that because it was great to contribute to the project, and I learned a lot myself working on this project. I learned a lot about music composition. There were some pieces that were kind of big challenges, and it was so I'm pretty proud of my work on here.
Nice.
Sweet.
Yeah, you both definitely deserve to feel pride for this because this is a very excellent project that you've made.
Yeah. And
yeah.
I can imagine just like the amount of work that's been put into this, and the fact that you guys are as far as long as you are is just awesome.
Right. And I know from experience that I keeping up with a fan project can sometimes be a little rough, and as I can attest from experience with the Xenosaga project I've worked on in the past. But it's very I'm kind of what's the word I'm looking for? I guess I'm encouraged by you all and your like determination to get this project made and just how great you work together on this. It's very inspirational. It's very inspiring.
Yeah.
So thank you for this project.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. And I was really inspired by Fox because I mean I got to know Fox through this project, and you know, I wasn't sure at the rate of, you know, progress that was going to be made on this, and I was really surprised, like, you know, after I started talking to Fox, like a month or 2 months after we started talking, I was really surprised at the amount of progress and the momentum that Fox has sustained throughout the whole project. It's really been remarkable. Like it says a lot about the passion that Fox has for this game as well as for Xenosaga. And so that was inspiring to me, you know, to keep pushing. There were definitely moments where I struggled. Like there was in particular the final battle music. I think there was like maybe 5 or 6 false starts that I did to that, and I just threw them away. And I remember I think Fox was asking about that for a while, and I felt bad. And it's like, no, I'm still figuring it out. Like I feel really bad, but like, you know, and then it eventually came to me, and I think what we ended up with ended up working out really well, thankfully. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I never, yeah, I never wanted to put any pressure on you. I always gave Bob as much freedom as possible. But I think
yep,
for
yes, yes,
the
you did.
last boss music in particular, that was one moment in the whole on the whole project where I think yeah, it felt like I think it took weeks until I eventually got any kind of update from him about that, and I was really starting to worry what has happened and things like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I put it down for a little bit, and I had to come back to it, and then it kind of just like the what ended up in the game. I think I wrote over a couple of days. It came out pretty quick, and I struggle with that because I'm not trained. Like I'm kind of self-taught, and so I think because of that, sometimes I'll hit a wall, and I don't really have the technique to like work around it. I just kind of have to wait it out. And so that's also kind of going back to what I said earlier about things coming in waves. It was also just kind of, you know, kind of waiting around for that problem to kind of, you know, or the solution, I should say, to present itself. And that's kind of what happened there.
Yeah, I can't even imagine your part in the project was obviously much more creative than what I did, and so I can't even imagine how hard it must be if you're in this creative block and just have no idea how you should go on. And I hope I was able to somehow support you, but yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. You definitely did, and I just wanted to say, like, I never felt any pressure. Like I didn't feel the pressure.
That's
It was pressure I felt from myself, like, you know, because of the fact that, you know, you had made so much progress. It's like, no, I want to make sure that, like, you know, because there were definitely moments of self-doubt. You know, I definitely was a little insecure about some of the music, but the fact that even the music that has been released so far, it seems like the reaction's been pretty positive. And also I just want to say, Fox had mentioned there's a new version out. If you've already played the game but you're interested in revisiting it, the I feel like the music that's there and the polishing that we've done to the soundtrack, like I feel it really elevates the story. So I definitely advocate, like, try the new version. You're gonna really enjoy yourself revisiting the story through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, the music elevates the stuff so much. If I didn't have your music or the art from Forest, it would be a very, very different project. It would still maybe cover the story, but the production value is just so much higher with you two.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you very much for both of you joining us
Yeah.
today. So the Xenosaga Pied Piper remake is available on itch.io for PC and Mac, right?
Yeah, exactly. You
Okay.
can play it on Windows PCs or on Mac, or you can also play it directly on the browser. So you can play even on mobile devices which have a web browser which support that.
Yeah, I've thought about playing it on my Steam Deck because that sounds like the perfect experience to play that. So, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other last words you have for like the fans that are going to be playing this game?
I hope
Um,
I'll say I hope anybody who plays it, I hope you enjoy the soundtrack, and I hope it sounds like Xenosaga. That was my goal.
Mm.
oh yeah, I wanted to say that it's for me it's especially heartwarming about this project that it is maybe you noticed before, but it's especially heartwarming for me that it is such an international project between me
Mm-hmm.
coming from Europe, Bob from the US, and Forrest from Japan. I think it don't worry, I don't won't go too political or something, but I think that one very important message from this is that we are always stronger together, and so I think projects like this show that the community is so much stronger if we work together,
Mm-hmm.
get closer together. When I released the game, Forrest wrote me a very heartwarming message. I won't read the whole message out, but he made a very fun metaphor about that. He said, "One cannot fly alone, only by joining forces like two people, each with one wing, can we soar into the sky. That's
Oh.
a fundamental theme to the Xeno series, continuing from all the way back from Xenogears." And he says, "I believe game development is the same." And I couldn't have said it any better. I think that is absolutely true. And yeah, I put the game out there as a fan, from fans, to fans, and the biggest thing you can do for me is to to play it. I like nothing more than reading online how people react to certain parts, or maybe even the other day I saw some first let's plays of it, and that gives me great joy. I'm really happy to see when people are playing it, enjoying it, and maybe find a story they didn't expect there to be.
Hmm.
Especially chapter 3 is really, really great. I really loved writing that.
Awesome. Okay, well, yeah, thanks again for joining us. And yeah, everybody go to, I'll put a link in the show notes
Mhm.
to where to download it and play the game. So thank you very much, and you all have a good night.
Yeah.
Good night,
Thank you.
everyone.
Take care,
And thank you
guys.
for having us.
Thank you for
Yes.
speaking with us and
Yes,
telling us
thank
about
you.
yourselves and the project.
Yeah, this is really good.
Okay, good job!